So you get that diagnosis from the doctors that you can no longer play football. How devastating was that for you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a huge shock. Football is everything to me. It's my first love, and to be told that you can never play another snap, it was, pretty shocking and kind of flips your world upside down. It was a hard time, but things don't always go as planned, and you got to roll with the punches and keep going with what you're setting out to do.
When did you first get the inkling that maybe that first diagnosis was incorrect, that you could probably come back to football?
I wasn't able to give up the game. I was always around it, and it was too much for me to let go. And one of my roommates at the time, Jeremiah Green, was a big support system for me in that time, and was a big reason as to why me and him started talking about going and getting second opinions and whatnot. At that point, I had realized that I wasn't going to let one person tell me that I couldn't chase my dreams, and so we went and started getting second opinions from a couple of different doctors.
Savage throws, almost picked off. It is.
And Arciniega comes up with the interception in a big break.
Let's fast forward. You get here. You get injured after a pretty successful first season here. Tell me what's going through your mind last season.
It was pretty frustrating at that point. It was my senior year, and to be able to miss the first game, come back for 2 games, and re-injure something else, I just felt like, what am I? What's the deal? Why is this happening? But you can't feel sorry for yourself. So I think learning from back when I was younger in 2010 and dealing with adversity, it really helped me to stay positive and be able to push through last season. It was tough, I would say, just to know that was my senior year, and I possibly ended on another injury. Ending on that note was it didn't sit right with me, but thankfully to the NCAA and getting those 2 years back was huge for me.
I would think, though, you have a pretty big advantage, even though you have dealt with adversity and injury.
Right.
You're bigger than a lot of these guys because you're older. And you've gotten to watch and observe and kind of learn. Terrell Hunt talks about it all the time, getting that year to just kind of almost be a coach.
Like you said, Terrell was talking about, you get a chance to see the other side of things. You hear coaches on you all the time during practice and meetings and whatnot, and when you're in there and you're playing, sometimes after hearing it so much, people tend to shrug it off, and then you're on that other side of the ball where you're not playing. You see things from a totally different perspective. So
this year, obviously, you're coming back after almost missing an entire season, and you're being asked to play a new position. First time ever. How big of a transition and how big of an adjustment is that from linebacker now to the defensive line?
I mean, I've never played defensive line before, but being under Coach Lee, who does a tremendous job of making sure that his guys know exactly what they're doing, not only for their position, but every other position as well. The transition, it was, I truly don't think that it was that difficult because of the fact Coach Lee making us know what the defensive line was already doing as a Mike linebacker. So partially, things that I was learning in the spring, I had already had in my notes just because I was, because of Coach Lee was making us know that. So it was, big thanks to him for that, and I really appreciate at the time, he made us learn a lot of things that you think, hey, why do I even have to do this? Why do I have to know this? That's not my position. And now I'm really thanking him for that just because it made that transition a lot smoother.
Now, Luke, of course, getting that news that he'd have 2 more years of eligibility this spring while practicing with the team, not even knowing if he'd have a spot on that team. He said he didn't even know that 2 years was a possibility. He had only really applied for 1. Now, Danny, you're a bit of a comeback specialist yourself, and a trailblazer as far as the NCAA goes in granting extra years of eligibility.
I was I think the 3rd guy in the NCAA history to ever get granted a 6th year, and I think I just learned out about the 2nd year about 30 seconds ago. So now I think I'm most excited for Luke to be a part of this team again, because when you go through a season-ending injury as he did, there's a separation from the team. As much as you want to feel part of it, and the guys try to make you feel part of it, you can't contribute. So there's some separation there that is difficult to handle for a young guy. So the fact that he's healthy and he's a part of this team again, and he's got not only the 5th year but the 6 years coming up. We were just discussing in the break of he's got the prototypical linebacker size, 6'4", 6'5", 250-pound guy. So dropping his hand down, going to the defense end position, I think, is going to show his versatility. If he can stay healthy, he was a productive player the last when he was playing over the last year or two. So I enjoy watching him play, and I'm rooting for him as the old man in the locker room right now.
And we talked about it in the interview a little bit, the ability to just get that much bigger. The older you get, the more likely you are to put on a little bit of bulk. Does that help as well? I mean, did you experience that?
Yeah, I did. I still experience it. When you're 18, 19 years old and you go into the locker room, you're 6% body fat, and you can eat all the food you want and not put on a pound. And all of a sudden, I said, when you get to that 22, 23-year-old age, you start putting on your man weight. And as I continue to put my man weight on, he's starting to thicken up as a man. So it's great that he can put it on. What I would say the big question is can he play with the weight? That was an issue that we had with Doug Hogue. His senior year, we asked him to put 15, 20 pounds on. He went from 217 to 234. And he and I, we had a huge discussion after the Washington game, and he basically came at me and said, "Coach, I can't handle the weight." So we had to strip the weight back off him. So the big issue for him is can he play with it?
There you go. Thanks so much for that, Kelly. Thanks so much for that report. Again, Luke named a team captain this year, so always see how he does along with Terrell Hunt and Zaire Franklin, one of the first sophomore captains we've seen.
Wow.
Thanks so much.